All right, so here is day number 2, or workout number 2. I'm going to probably move you around a lot on this one, man, so hopefully it doesn't make you seasick with the camera moving around. It's just a little bit more challenging to kind of pull everything together. Obviously, so your big strength move today is going to be your bench press. Now, you guys have a Smith machine, which is great. It works. There's pros and cons to every kind of piece of equipment and what we're trying to facilitate. With the Smith machine, the cool thing about it is it's safe, meaning that it's pretty easy to, you can always rack it, you can always put it in the right position. With obviously a bar, it can maneuver around and it can be a little less safe. Also, that the Smith machine keeps you on in a specific path and track. Again, that has its pros and cons as well. So some of this stuff you may have to kind of adjust a little bit to really to make it to adapt it to the Smith machine. But we're gonna review just real quick kind of your bench press protocol. Again, sets, reps, things like that will make specific, and I'll put it in your programming, in your template, your program template. But let's dive in. So, right, just to recall what we're going to do, right, with your bench, the big thing is making a structure, Bob. Anytime we're doing big strength, functional strength movements like squats, deadlifts, bench press, things like that, it's about creating the optimal structure so that we can move the weight and move the weight safely. So, right, in this case, now the setup is going to be different on a Smith machine. With the bench press, I want to set my eyes right underneath the bar when the bar is at the back of the J-hook, as it is right now. Then from there, I want to adjust myself on the bench to match that up. Again, eyes directly underneath the bar, bars at the back of the J-hook. Then I'm going to roll the bar forward. I'm going to find my grip, and the simplest way to do this is, again, take the tip of your thumb, make an L, right? Take the tip of your thumb, place the tip of your thumb at the start of the knurling or the filing on the bar. And you can really go all the way out to where your pinky finger is on the first break in that knurling, depending upon how that bar is set up. But again, making an L, thumb at the start of that knurling. Right? Then from here, we're going to create our structure. So we're going to drive our feet to the floor to squeeze our glutes. We're squeezing our glutes so we can arch in our back and get our shoulder blades nice and flush on that bench to the extent that we comfortably can. Again, just be mindful of your low back. You don't want any pain, obviously, in your low back. But the arch should come from driving through the floor, squeezing your glutes, lifting through the sternum, engaging your big lat muscles, right? And breaking that bar. If you remember breaking that dowel rod. Again, right? We're going to take that bar off. Big breath, right? Exhale, bring that bar off. Press to the floor, squeeze the butt, arch the back, lift through the chest. Nice big inhale into that upper chest, upper lungs, upper ribs. Starting that breath just a little bit before we begin the descent. Exhale, press. Now notice, I want that bar to really fall kind of mid-sternum. Now for everybody it's a little bit different. I really want it to kind of fall below my nipple line. For me, everybody's a little different. I think for you, probably about the same, about mid-sternum or more kind of lower third of the sternum. Bob, the heavier it is, the more of the breath you want at the top. The lighter it is, the faster you can begin the descent. But you still want to start that inhale just a little bit before you move, like we did with the marches and the things like that. Again, start that inhale just a little bit before you move. And again, the heavier it is, don't start moving until you got most of that breath in. If you're doing something real heavy, you want all that breath in first. All right, man. Let's move you on. And obviously, if you have any questions about any of this, please don't hesitate to reach out. We can always go over this stuff either via video or or we can even do a Zoom or a FaceTime call to solidify a lot of this as well. So Bob, the next thing we're going to do, it's going to be a little tricky for me to do because I don't have my cable machine isn't set up like yours. You know, you've got that cable crossover. That's what I would recommend for this. Now you can use, you have a pull down machine. You have a cable pull down, or you have a pull down machine. You can use that machine. I'm not a huge fan, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of doing compound or multi-joint movements on machines because most of those machines are usually fixed axis machines. They may have a little bit of, they may even be 2 axes. Most of them have 1, maybe 2, but really you're looking at 3 joints moving. So I hope that kind of makes sense. That's why I'm more of a fan of cables and free weights because they tend to move in more natural planes of motion. That's not to say that machines aren't bad, especially for single joint activities, or if the machine again has multiple axes. Some are really, really good and they can accommodate more linear motion because they have multiple axes moving, but a lot of them aren't. So that being said, right, you can do your pull down machine, your seated pull down machine at your gym. You can also do your cable crossover. I kind of like that cable crossover. Here's what I would do. We would have you do you can do this from a seated position if this bothers your knees. But what I like to do, and my cable machine probably isn't as tall as yours, but I like to do tall kneeling cable pull downs. With my cable machine, now I don't know that your knee's going to permit this. With my cable machine, because of it's not very tall, I go into the low kneeling position, and I do my pull downs from here. Again, a nice big inhale, starting that inhale just a little bit before you extend. Again, Bob, you can always go tall kneeling. The other thing you can do is you can do this from a seated position. Pull a bench in. Or again, if you can always do your pull down machine. It works. And the big thing again, what we're trying to do with this exercise is hypertrophy based exercise for the back. Right? So pull down machine works, that cable crossover works. You really got a couple of options here. You want to find the one that you like the best, right? It's more so than anything. What do you like the best? What feels the best? What feels the best on your joints? And what do you actually enjoy doing? All right, man. Let's move you on. So, Bob, kind of the same thing here. We got a couple of options. Now, we didn't get to do a whole lot of this when you were here, but the leg-based exercise that I want to have you do on this day is either your choice, and this is going to be really dependent upon your knee, your choice either a lunge or a step up. And sometimes the lunge, because of we're eccentrically loading or eccentrically moving into the position, right? The muscle has to stretch under tension. Sometimes that can be a lot on people's knees. So let's start there, and then again, we can always move to a step up, again, just to find the thing that's more optimal for you. So just to give you a little progression, I like to use the TRX for this. You can also use your cable machine for this at a lightweight, or you can even have dowel rods. You can use the rack for a little bit of support, because you want to think movement first, then balance and stability, and then load. Meaning, I'd much rather, okay, can I do this continuously in a smooth manner? Right? Number one. Again, another way that you can do this, and I'll often do this, is I'll use a squat rack, and I'll hold on to that squat rack, Same thing, just kind of use that squat rack as a bit of a guide. So movement number one, once you feel solid with that movement pattern, right, you can start to move without any assistance. Sometimes it's helpful to add a little bit of counterweight. Sometimes it can be more challenging just to go free without any weight, kind of just body weight. Sometimes it's easier to actually have a little bit of counterbalance first, right? And then obviously, if you want to make this even more challenging, the way I like to do, well, there's a couple of different ways. Kind of just the traditional way is to grab dumbbells in a suitcase fashion, right? I'll do it this way. One of the ways that I like to do this is to do like we do with your goblet squat, and go here as well. Now, Bob, it may be just too much to drop down that far. So you can always find mats, right? And restrict that range of motion. Right? You can always find mats and restrict that range of motion. I'm a fan of these on some level, even if, again, you're using the rack or something like a TRX for support, just because they're great for mobility purposes. This is such a functional movement. I think we even went over this. Getting up off the floor, all right, is something that we want to preserve as much as we possibly can. There is a variation of this where you just don't go down all the way. You can do that as well. I would say, though, I would want you to be able to come all the way down first and just have this level of mobility. I think it's so important. Now, we may find that it's just too much on your knee to do a lunge kind of repetitiously like that. If that's the case, we can do two different things. Number one, we just have you alternate, right? Maybe one day we have you do, one day on your bench press day, you're doing a lunge, right, where you're just focusing on mobility. Again, maybe you're using something like the TRX, maybe you're using the squat rack, you got a pad underneath that you're lowering down to, and you're literally, as silly as it may sound, getting up and down off the floor. And maybe on the next week, you do something like a step up, where you can load it a little bit heavier, because usually step ups are less, because they don't require lowering under tension or lengthening under tension, eccentrically contracting to the extent that a lunge does. They can often be a little easier on the joints. So, right, in this case, I'm using a 12-inch plow box. I didn't see any of these in your videos, so we may have to use a bench. Benches are pretty high, so that may be, depending upon the bench, I think you have one that's a little bit smaller though. But you really kind of want something, I mean, this is about 12 inches, that's probably pretty good. Maybe a little bit higher, but not too much. Again, you're here, same thing, movement first. Let's just see how you feel. Again, often step-ups can be easier on joints than lunges. If that feels pretty good, maybe again, you go into body weight. Again, this is another opportunity. A little intermediary is to have some kind of counterbalance, right? And then number three is just like with the lunges, we load you up, and we do your step-ups right here. Again, sometimes when you're doing step-ups, I like to just leave that leg up there. But if it may feel better to actually either just pick up the foot, that kind of disconnects the circuit, so to speak, or you can step all the way down. All right, man. I know that's throwing a lot at you, but again, it's really about finding what's most optimal for you. And I'm sure you've heard this before, and or something to this effect, and maybe relating to exercise, nutrition, or even something completely different. But it's like what the saying often in the exercise world and the nutrition world is, the okay or basic plan that you do consistently is way better than the perfect plan that you don't ever do. So it's really about finding the stuff that works best, that feels best for you, that doesn't generate pain, right, no pain in the joints, and that you enjoy, right, that you actually enjoy. So the last exercise we're going to do in this series is some kind of tricep isolation work. Your big strength move was your bench press. So we're going to do some kind of isolation-based tricep work. In this case, I'm just going to do a cable push down. Right? I'm sure you've probably done these before. I didn't see one at your gym in the video, but they probably have some kind of either cable rope, or often they'll have like a triangle-looking device with little ends on it. I'm sure you've done these before. This is nothing new. Just want a tricep extension. And same thing with any of the single joint exercises, right? Sharp on the way down, doesn't have to be slow. Strong contraction at the bottom, slow on the return. Exhale, get that nice big inhale into the nose. Strong contraction, pause, feel that muscle contract isometrically, slow on that return, big inhale into the nose. With isolation-based exercises, you can really take them to failure or fatigue, and it can have a big effect. Right? This is an exercise you can take to fatigue, just like with the leg extensions, just like with a lot of the bicep curls and the other single joint stuff that we're going to do. You can take these to fatigue. It's going to stimulate a certain response in the body, which can be really powerful because it's safe to take it to fatigue. It's worth taking it to that place. Again, as long as it doesn't hurt your joints and so forth. All right, man. So just like with day one, let me just check your notes real quick. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so just like with day one, we had you finish with some interval-based work on the rower. Now, again, same thing. Honestly, here, Bob, I love the rower, and I didn't see, here at my gym, I like to have. I've got a skier, which basically is the same thing as the rower. It's just you're pulling down. I have a fan bike. There's a couple of other different modalities. I have ropes. So there's different ways we can do interval training, right? Where we're just kind of doing sprint-based work without necessarily running sprints. You can do that with an elliptical machine. It's a little bit harder. You can do that with a bike. Again, it's a little bit harder. You may have other stuff there. I didn't see it. If you want to just stick with the rower, man, by all means, go for it. Again, like I expressed in the last video, 200 meters is often the distance that I recommend, but it doesn't even have to be that. Man, it could be 100 meters. It could be 150 meters. You can change it up. Maybe one day you do 3 rounds going 200 meters. Maybe the next time you do it, you do 5 rounds going 100 meters. And again, I'll express a lot of this on your template, and if you need me to make these decisions for you, I can. The point I'm trying to make is it doesn't have to be perfect. Find something that you love and vary it up a little bit. So let's just say in this case, we're doing, last time you did 200 meters with that hard style sit up in between. Here, you're going to do, let's say, 100 meters, 5 rounds, with something called a farmer's carry in between. And we didn't do this while you were here, but what you're going to do is we're going to grab 2 heavy dumbbells. You may want to start maybe with the 30s. You could probably do heavier than that, Bob. I mean, honestly, you could probably start off with the first kind of threshold that we want to basically try to get you to is roughly around a 40 to a 50 pound dumbbell in each hand. maybe start off with the 30s and just see how they feel. Literally, all you're gonna do, shoulders back and down, long through the spine, maybe a slight little tug in the pelvis. We're gonna walk, right? You're gonna walk, and you're gonna carry them as far as you can until you have to put them down. I think you can do a lap around the floor. Maybe maybe I'm mistaking your floor plan, but it looks like you can do a lap. Try to shoot for anywhere between around 20 to 30 meters, right? Hit about 20 to 30 meters. If you can do 20, if you can't quite do 20, drop the weight. If you can do 30, increase the weight. But that's what you're looking to do, 20 to 30 meters. So again, just to recap, we're going to do an interval, and on whatever, again, the rower is just the thing that I saw. I love rowers. Maybe this time we're doing 100 meters, versus the 200. Doesn't matter. Either 100 up to 200, and then you're going to do that farmer's carry. I'm going to lay this out for you. With the carry, we'll probably end up having you do 200 meters and then a carry, and we'll do that 2 to 3 times. Maybe what we'll have you do is we'll have you do 100-meter rows, fast sprints, and then that hard style sit-up because it's a shorter duration, not quite as intense. Or it's really intense, but for a short period versus the farmer's carry, longer duration. Don't worry, I'll lay all this out on the platform, the program. I just wanted to express this to you on the video as well. So you'll always finish with some kind of high intensity interval work, again, like the rower, with some kind of distance, and then you're always going to finish with some kind of functional core-based exercise, right? With your deadlift, we did that hard style sit-up. We're really focused on the abs. It's a little less functional, but it works.